rebellious woman, an unholy alliance. Tyrannical man, rebellious woman, and unholy alliance. We're in chapter 1 still, and we begin, of course, we shared with you earlier that, there was to be this extraordinary banquet that this king was going to have for all of his officials, for all of his nobles. We read, of course, that his throne, was stretching, for some 120 provinces from Ethiopia to India. And so now, all of a sudden, they're having this banquet. Let's take a look at it. On the 7th day of the feast, when King Xerxes was in high spirits because of the wine, he told the 7 eunuchs who attended him, each one of them, and it has them by name, okay, to bring Queen Vashti to him with the royal crown on her head. He wanted the nobles and all the other men to gaze on her beauty, for she was a very beautiful woman. But when they conveyed the king's order to Queen Vashti, she refused to come. This made the king furious, and he burned with anger. How demeaning. How even disgraceful. And this is the very thing that I mentioned in the opening session of this Few Minutes with Esther, that I mentioned. When you take persons and you render them to a third-class citizen, when you render them to just objects to be observed, you get what you get. But that's what happens with tyrannical man, a tyrant. That's what happens. There's no sensibility to the other person. It's all about self-aggrandizement. It's all about myself. It's all about me. And then, when the word gets to her, she's also, has the women with her, basically, assembled with her. And he wants her to come so he can show her beauty. How unfortunate. How disgraceful, like I said earlier. And then something even worse happens, though. She refuses to go. She refuses to go. Now, you're looking at this, if you're a man, if you're a woman, you're going, well, no, she should do that. No, that's not the way that God operates. And it's not the way that God would have us operate. Now, notwithstanding the fact that all of this is going to be utilized to work to God's behalf in the deliverance of his people through a circumstance, we still have to, we kind of use this as an example. We use this as an example of what happens when you get a tyrant and a rebel together. It's going to be disastrous. If somebody doesn't place to the side their own, apprehensions and their own misgivings and say, and the best example I can use is the example of Abigail, where she knows she's married to Nabal. Nabal meaning, the very word meaning a fool, has to rescue her family, intervene for her family, and then go back to Nabal after she intervenes before David to save her family's life because of something silly that her foolish husband has done. But then, when she does that and she's successful at intervening and gets back to her husband, he's drunk. She doesn't unload on him at that time. She knows it's not a time for that. She waits to the next day. And that is tremendous wisdom for men and women, that every moment and every time is not the time to show, to demonstrate or protest something that's happened to you. Sometimes you just have to carry through and then address something later in a personal way, and that didn't happen here. And it turned out to be a disaster. But it takes spiritual men not to be tyrants, and it takes spiritual women not to be rebels. Boy, there's so much that I've written and talked about that in terms of marriage, because that's what we have when you get married. The very essential DNA, part of your DNA for the man is that he's a tyrant, and the woman, she's a rebel. And when you put those two together, it's an unholy alliance. You can expect a disaster, and that's what we have. Father, thank you.